my review and thoughts of the Zelda series. So I wanted to talk about the one of my favorite series of games of all time. My favorite two series are Mario and Zelda, but I also really like other series like Donkey Kong, Ninja Gaiden, like other stuff like that. But um, I wanted to talk about Zelda because I want to split this up into two parts. So the first part is the early Zelda games, and then the later Zelda games, which is like the newer stuff. So the early stuff, I first got into Zelda when I was a kid, and it was NES Zeldas, all those Zeldas, and then I really played Super NES Zeldas and N64 a lot. Uh, Ocarina of Time is my favorite Zelda game of all time. But the earlier Zeldas, you know, in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, they were, when Zelda first came out, it was such a kind of a groundbreaking thing because no one had ever really seen anything quite like it. Like we sort of had like RPGs type stuff, but Zelda was just kind of its own thing and it was a lot different. Um, all the early Zeldas have their own charm and they all kind of follow a formula where it's like, it's kind of like open world, but you know, you've got the dungeons and things like that. The earlier Zeldas were very like formulaic in that even though each one was different, they kind of followed a formula. Um, and there's also other Zelda games I really like of the earlier ones, which like Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker are my favorite. But I remember playing the um, I played Ocarina of Time as a kid, Super NES Zeldas, NES stuff like that. But I always remember Zelda being like this huge, challenging. You play a Zelda game, it's like going on an adventure. But the earlier Zeldas were nothing compared to the newer Zeldas as far as like size. Um, so that brings me to the newer Zeldas. So early, around the mid 2000s, um, I think right around like Skyward Sword. Actually, Twilight Princess to me is where I started seeing a change in Zelda games. They started becoming more open world. Um, and Twilight Princess was kind of open world, but it wasn't that big. Like there was kind of it was kind of linear. Like you could only go certain places. And then Skyward Sword came out, and Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom, and all that. And we started seeing Zeldas that were it became different because it was such a big open world and um, some of the Zelda games, the later ones, don't have dungeons um, and stuff like that. So they kind of became different, and a lot of people complained that Zelda was changing. I I'm all for change, like I like keeping things the same in some ways, but I really appreciate the new Zeldas. Like I really like the whole open world, just kind of getting to explore and stuff like that. I personally do not like dungeons in Zelda games. The dungeons have always been my least favorite part. My favorite part has always been exploring the open world areas and just exploring towns and stuff like that, doing side quests. Um, but that's just me personally. I know a lot of people like dungeons, um, but I'm kind of rambling. The point is, like, it's been really amazing to see the progression of Zelda games throughout the years, um, and what we have now. as far as Zelda games is vastly different from what we had, you know, 20, 30 years ago. NES, Super NES, N64, and so on. Um, they've it's crazy to see how much the series has grown, and it remains one of Nintendo's most popular series. I believe Zelda and Mario are probably the two most popular as far as Nintendo series, but um, Zelda has definitely changed and progressed over the years. I look forward to new Zelda games because, like I said, it's one of my favorite franchises, and um, I don't I don't play them as much anymore, if I'm being honest, because I don't really have the time and energy to devote to an entire Zelda game. Um, because they're just so massive. Even the earlier games, some of them were really big, and just it takes a lot of time and patience and stuff like that. But I still enjoy the series. I might play it from time to time. I really love watching people play Zelda games, and um, I personally I like the newer open world Zelda games. I think they need to keep going in that direction. I personally think they need to keep dungeons out of the games. I really like. Yeah, I don't think dungeons belong. I just think they're kind of dungeons are kind of tedious to me, and they're just I get annoyed with them because they're just so tedious. But I really like the direction they started going in Tears of the Kingdom, where you can do all this stuff with like building and stuff like that. And I've heard people complain about this, like they say, like Mike Matei, for example, he doesn't like Tears of the Kingdom. He thinks it doesn't feel like Zelda because you're sitting there building stuff and things like that. And I agree, it's not like the Zelda we grew up with, but um, it's still Zelda, and I appreciate that they're trying new things, and I think things have to evolve sometimes. You know what I mean? And if you want a Zelda that's very formulaic, like a Zelda game, just go back and play one of the other ones, like you know Wind Waker or something. Um, but that being said, there are a few Zelda games that I don't care for specifically, like Twilight Princess. I didn't care for that much. I didn't have a lot of fun playing that one. Um, but I have played quite a few, and overall, I think they're amazing games. I think they put so much effort into them, and I'm excited to see where the series goes in the future.